Hello again. I am going to be talking about parent-child attachment in infancy and early childhood in the first song, which is called Tell Me How You Feel. Now, before I start talking about the lyrics, I want to touch a little bit on what attachment is, because it's different than just a connection to somebody. An attachment theory, which was first kind of ideated by John Bowlby and later studied even more by Mary Ainsworth. Attachment really has to do with a baby or child having an attachment figure, like a parent or caregiver who is consistent in providing safety, protection, comfort, and ultimately what the child needs for survival. And so we're mostly going to be looking at secure attachment, which is when children have those things consistently, when someone is responding to them and they know that they're going to be taken care of, that forms secure attachment bonds. Now, Mary Ainsworth talked about there being 4 pillars of attachment, those being sensitivity, control, availability, and rejection. But the first song is really focused on infancy and early childhood, so I want to mostly touch on sensitivity and a little bit on control. Sensitivity is when a mother or a caregiver is aware when their infant or child is trying to communicate with them. So they're aware of it, they notice it, they understand like what the child needs, and they respond to it in the way the child needs and like promptly. So you hear your baby crying and you go to care for them, whatever that is, versus ignoring your child and leaving them in their crib for a day or something, which isn't really something that parents would do. And so the first verse in my song talks about infancy. It says, "Sweetest of days with the longest of nights, I held you close as we lost the light. You cried and I cried, not sure what to do. No way around it, we had to go through." And it was really referring to with my first child, who was very colicky. He was the sweetest baby, but nights were very hard. And so even when we do our best, sometimes you can't solve the problem or you don't know why the baby's uncomfortable in that situation, but you're still trying. And sensitivity really has to do with that responsiveness. Now, the chorus says, "Tell me how you feel. You don't need to act out. You don't have to perform to get my attention. If you can't find the words, just come into my arms, love. No matter what, you have all my affection." And that kind of is related to that enduring love between mothers and children. Now, the second verse has more to do with early childhood and specifically toddlerhood, because my goodness, my child has given me a run for my money in some senses. The ideas that he comes up with, I'm like, I would never think to do that. And so also there were some just life circumstances that were stressful, and that's kind of a part of what I'm talking about in that verse. But the words go, "Been 3 years of time and a world of change. I never imagined the choices you'd make. The stress feels like more than we can bear, but at the end of the day, I will always be there." And there's like a little part that says, "You've come into your own, but you're still mine." And this part I feel like relates a little bit more to control, in that that control part isn't about being controlling, but rather giving your child a little bit of control of their choices. So giving them some space to decide what they want to play, versus, if they're playing with a truck and you come over and say, "Hey, build blocks," you're kind of taking control of their time of independence, which it's not a big deal. But allowing your child to have a little bit of autonomy, even just in small ways when they're young and throughout their life in age-appropriate ways, is really helpful. And so the last thing I wanted to talk about that is helpful in terms of building secure attachment, starting even when they're young, is called mind-mindedness. And this idea has to do with really mothers being able to think about what their child might be experiencing internally and externally. So, for example, they'd be communicating, if your kid hurt themselves and they ran up to you, or if they fell off of a bench. This has happened in my house. Fell off of a bench, and you might say, that really hurt, or are you feeling a little bit frightened, and kind of communicating out loud what they maybe have a harder time communicating. But mind-mindedness helps them because it models thinking about somebody else's perspective. And so that's something that they feel attached to you, but also they learn to do for others as they grow. So I think that's all I have for video 1. I hope that you join me for our next video. Thanks.